I brought my daughter to her big tryout only to see her billionaire CEO father claim another girl as his only child. My only daughter. I watched Darian Caldwell say those 3 words into a cluster of microphones, cameras flashing around him like lightning, his hand resting proudly on 13-year-old Selena's shoulder. My 9-year-old Isla stood 15 feet away, gymnastics bag clutched in her white-knuckled hands, her face crumpling as she processed what her father had just said to the world. "Mama," she whispered, her voice breaking in a way that shattered something inside me. Why did he say that? Why did he say Selena is his only daughter? I couldn't answer. My throat had closed around words I'd never wanted her to hear, truths I'd spent 9 years trying to shield her from. Around us, other parents whispered, their phones already out, recording the moment when Harrington Heights' most eligible bachelor made his rare public appearance at Crestview Athletics Academy. The autumn sun felt too bright, the manicured grass too green, everything sharp-edged and surreal. A reporter pushed closer to Darian. "Mr. Caldwell, can you tell us what brings you to your daughter's school today?" "Supporting Selena, of course." That practiced smile, the one I remembered from a decade ago when he promised me forever. She's worked incredibly hard for this tryout. I wanted to be here for her big moment. Her big moment. Not our daughter's big moment. Not Isla's moment. Just Selena's. Before I tell you what I did next, what happened when I finally confronted the man who'd erased our daughter from his perfect public life, I need you to understand something. If you've ever watched someone you love be publicly humiliated, if you've ever had to explain to your child why they weren't good enough to be claimed, stay with me. This story isn't just about a billionaire's denial. It's about what happens when a mother decides enough is enough. And if this resonates with you, if you've ever fought for someone who couldn't fight for themselves, let me know in the comments. I read every single one. Now, let me take you back to where this all started, because you need to understand how we got here. 10 years ago, I was someone completely different. Ilara Monroe, 26, ambitious marketing consultant on the rise at one of Seattle's most competitive firms. I wore power suits and attended networking events and believed that if I worked hard enough, success was inevitable. Then I met Darian Caldwell at a startup pitch event, and everything I thought I knew about myself became irrelevant. He was 32, brilliant in that dangerous way that makes you forget to protect yourself. His tech company was hemorrhaging money but gaining traction, and my firm had been hired to rebrand his image. Our first meeting was scheduled for 1 hour. It lasted 6. Coffee became lunch, became dinner, became something neither of us had planned but both desperately wanted. He talked about changing the world through accessible technology, about making innovation available to everyone, not just the wealthy. I talked about storytelling and human connection, about how people don't buy products, they buy meaning. We found each other fascinating, then necessary, then impossible to resist. For 18 months, we existed in this strange in-between space. Not quite secret, not quite public. His investors were nervous about his personal life affecting the company's image. My career was taking off, and office relationships were frowned upon. We told ourselves the timing would get better, that love could wait for logistics to align. Then my period was late. I remember sitting on my bathroom floor at 6 a.m., staring at 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test, my heart hammering so hard I thought my ribs might crack. I called Darian immediately, my voice shaking with equal parts terror and hope. His silence stretched so long I actually checked my phone to see if the call had dropped. "This can't happen right now," he finally said, his voice tight and distant. "The Series B funding closes next week. If investors think I'm distracted by personal complications, if they think my focus isn't completely on the company." Personal complications. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. Is that what I am? What our baby is? Ilara, please. Just give me time to think. Let me figure this out. I gave him 3 days. 3 days of unanswered calls. 3 days of text messages marked read but never returned. On the fourth day, a manila envelope arrived via courier. Inside was a letter from Darian's attorney, a generous settlement offer, a carefully worded non-disclosure agreement, and a crystal-clear implication that Darian Caldwell's future did not include room for me or our child. Pride and heartbreak fused into something hard and sharp in my chest. I returned every cent of his money with a note that said simply, "We don't need your guilt payments. We don't need you." I signed nothing, agreed to nothing, and disappeared from his world completely. If he didn't want this baby, I would raise her alone. If he couldn't choose us, I would build a life where his absence wouldn't matter. For 9 years, I almost convinced myself I'd succeeded. I moved to Harrington Heights because my sister Nadia lived there, because I needed family support, because starting over somewhere new felt like the only way to breathe again. I worked 2 jobs that first year. Freelance marketing during Isla's nap times, evening shifts at a bookstore after my mother came over to watch her. It was exhausting and lonely, and sometimes I cried in my car before going inside to smile at my daughter. But we made it. We more than made it. Isla grew into this remarkable little human. Curious, determined, kind in ways that constantly surprised me. She loved stars and gymnastics and asking questions that required me to Google answers at midnight. She never asked about her father. Not directly. But sometimes I'd catch her watching other kids with their dads at the park, her expression distant and wondering. 3 years ago, a single check arrived in my mailbox. $20,000 made out to Isla Monroe, with a note in handwriting I recognized, for her education. Please don't contact me. I tore it into pieces and mailed them back to his office in an envelope with no return address. Now, standing at Crestview Athletics Academy, watching my daughter's face crumple as her father denied her existence on live television, I realized that every choice I'd made to protect her had led us here anyway. To this moment. This public humiliation. Mama, I don't feel good. Isla's gymnastics bag slipped from her fingers and hit the grass with a soft thud. I knelt down immediately, gathering her into my arms, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo mixed with the slight sweat of nerves. We can leave, sweetheart. You don't have to do the tryout today. We can go home. But I practiced so hard. Tears balanced on her lower lashes, stubborn and bright. Coach Riley said I was ready for the advanced team. You took off work to bring me here. None of that matters more than you. I cupped her face in my hands, my thumbs gentle against her cheeks. Not the tryout, not the team, not anything. You are what matters. Isla's chin jutted out in that stubborn way she had, the expression my sister Nadia always said was pure Monroe determination. I want to do it anyway. I want him to see what he's missing. The adult emotion in her 9-year-old voice broke something fundamental inside me. Across the field, Darian's publicity team was orchestrating photo opportunities. Selena stood beside him, polished and poised in expensive athleisure wear that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She was completely unaware that 50 yards away stood her half-sister, the family secret wrapped in a purple leotard and fierce determination. I'd seen photos of Selena before, during those weak 2 a.m. moments when I'd Googled Darian's name and fallen down rabbit holes of society page images. Her mother, Viviana Ray, was a socialite whose family fortune predated Darian's by several generations. She appeared in charity gala photos with practiced frequency, her engagement ring from Darian always prominently displayed, always catching the light just right for the cameras. The timeline had been easy enough to piece together during those sleepless nights. Darian had started dating Viviana 6 months after I left. They'd announced their engagement a year later. Selena had been born 8 months after that. Legitimate, planned, wanted. Everything Isla apparently wasn't. Mom. Isla's voice pulled me back to the present. You're crying. I hadn't realized. I wiped my eyes quickly, forcing steadiness into my voice that I absolutely did not feel. Allergies. It's the fall pollen, baby. Nothing to worry about. Isla looked completely unconvinced but didn't push. Instead, she took my hand, her small fingers surprisingly strong around mine. "Will you watch me? I need you to watch. I'm always watching, baby girl. Always." We moved toward the registration desk together, my heart a drumbeat of dread and fury in my chest. I checked Isla in with hands that wanted to shake but didn't, accepted the participant number, helped pin it to her leotard with fingers that felt numb. Around us, the energy had shifted. People were whispering, glancing between Darian's group and us, phones out, speculation already spreading like wildfire. A buzz swept through the crowd as Darian's entourage moved closer to the tryout area. A reporter I recognized from local news thrust a microphone toward him, her smile professionally friendly but her eyes sharp with the scent of a story. "Mr. Caldwell, what does it mean to you to be here supporting your daughter today?" "Everything." Darian's smile was camera-ready, practiced, hollow. "Family is the most important thing in the world to me. Selena's dedication to gymnastics, her work ethic, her passion, it makes me incredibly proud to be her father." Each word landed like a physical blow. I wanted to scream. I wanted to march across that perfectly manicured field and force him to look at Isla, to acknowledge what he denied, to face the consequences of his choices. But Isla was watching me, needing my strength, and I'd promised myself years ago that I would never let my own pain hurt her more than his absence already had. So I smiled. I squeezed Isla's hand. I leaned down and whispered, "Show them what you're made of, sweetheart. Show them all." Isla nodded, took a deep breath that made her small shoulders rise and fall, and walked onto the mat. For 90 seconds, I forgot about everything else. Isla moved through her routine with grace that seemed impossible for someone so young. Back handspring into a round off, her form perfect, her landing solid. Then onto the beam, where she executed a routine that showcased both precision and artistry. The crowd murmured appreciation. Coaches made notes on their clipboards. Parents pulled out their phones to record. And Darian, perhaps drawn by the movement or the applause or some unconscious recognition, turned to watch. I saw the exact moment it happened. The slight widening of his eyes. The barely perceptible step backward. The color draining from his face. He recognized her. Of course he did. She had his eyes, that distinctive shade of green that looked almost gray in certain light. She had his smile, the one that transformed her whole face when she was genuinely happy. He'd seen photos. I knew that from the child support check he'd sent, the one I'd destroyed. But seeing her in person, watching her move, seeing that undeniable resemblance, that was different. That made it real in a way photographs never could. He glanced toward Viviana, who stood scrolling through her phone, completely oblivious to the small earthquake happening 15 feet away. Then back to Isla, who stuck her landing perfectly, arms raised in triumph. Our daughter. Because whatever he claimed publicly, whatever lies he told the press and probably himself, Isla was ours. His blood ran through her veins as surely as mine did. Isla looked toward me with triumph blazing in her eyes, her smile wide and genuine and so full of joy it made my heart ache. She didn't look at Darian. Didn't even glance in his direction. She hadn't earned his attention, and some instinct told her not to give him hers. Good, I thought fiercely. You haven't earned the right to her pride. As Isla jogged off the mat toward me, the media circus shifted. A reporter who'd clearly done her homework, who'd probably spent the morning digging through old gossip sites and archived articles, stepped forward with a question that changed everything. "Mr. Caldwell, there are rumors about another daughter. Can you comment on reports that you have a child with marketing consultant Alara Monroe?" The crowd went silent. Every phone swiveled toward us. I felt dozens of eyes land on me and Isla like physical weight. Thank you all for coming. Darian's handlers moved with practiced efficiency, forming a protective barrier. Mr. Caldwell has no further comment at this time. We appreciate your interest in the Crestview Athletics Academy program. But the question hung in the air like smoke, impossible to disperse. The whispers began immediately, spreading through the crowd in waves I could almost see. Is that her? The other child? She looks exactly like him, look at those eyes. Poor thing, imagine being the secret. I heard he paid her off years ago. Viviana must be furious. Isla's joy dimmed as she registered the attention, the speculation, the way people were staring at us like we were exhibits in a museum. Mama, everyone's looking at us. Why is everyone staring? Let them stare, baby. I wrapped my arm around Isla's shoulders, pulling her close, creating a shield with my body. You were magnificent up there. That's all that matters. You were absolutely perfect. But even as I said it, even as I tried to make my voice strong and certain, I knew it wasn't quite true. What mattered was protecting Isla from this, from public denial, from feeling like a secret or a shame, from inheriting the wound of her father's rejection in front of cameras and crowds and cruel, curious strangers. What mattered was figuring out how to heal what had just been cracked wide open. We walked to the car through a gauntlet of stares and whispers. I kept my head high, my arm around Isla, refusing to show the devastation churning inside me. The drive home was heavy with silence. Isla stared out the window, her small face reflected in the glass, looking far older than 9. Did you know he was going to be there? She finally asked, her voice small. No, sweetheart. I had no idea. Do you think he saw me? Like really saw me? The question shattered me. I think he'd have to be blind not to see how amazing you are. But he said Selena was his only daughter. Isla turned to look at me, her green eyes, Darian's eyes, full of confusion and hurt. Does that mean I'm not his daughter? Or does it mean he just wishes I wasn't? I had to pull the car over because my vision blurred with tears and rage in equal measure. I unbuckled my seatbelt and turned to face her fully. Listen to me, Isla Monroe. You are brilliant and talented and kind and strong. Your worth has nothing to do with whether he claims you. Do you understand me? Nothing. You were valuable before he existed in your life, and you're valuable now, and you'll be valuable forever, no matter what he says or doesn't say. Then why does it hurt so much? Her voice broke on the last word. I climbed into the back seat and held her while she cried, her small body shaking with sobs, and I made a decision. I was done protecting his secret. Done letting him pretend we didn't exist. Done watching my daughter hurt because of his cowardice. Before we do anything rash, before I tell you about the choice I made that night that would change everything, I need to ask you something. If you were in my position, would you have stayed silent to protect your child from more pain, or would you have confronted him publicly and forced him to acknowledge the truth? Drop a comment and let me know, because I genuinely want to understand how you would handle this impossible situation. And if you're finding value in this story, if it's resonating with something in your own life, please hit that subscribe button. It helps this channel grow and allows me to keep bringing you these real, raw stories about navigating impossible situations. That night, after Isla finally cried herself to sleep, her face blotchy and her breath still hitching with leftover sobs, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and a heart full of righteous fury. My sister Nadia had called, having seen clips of the incident already circulating on social media. Don't do anything rash when you're this angry, she'd counseled, her voice gentle but firm. Sleep on it. Wait until you can think clearly. But some wounds demanded immediate response. Some injustices couldn't wait for clarity. I opened a blank document and began to type. The letter poured out of me like water from a broken dam, 10 years of pain and anger and love and grief spilling onto the page. I wrote about the pregnancy test, about his silence, about raising Isla alone. I wrote about her first steps, her first words, her first day of school, all the moments he'd missed by choice. I wrote about the child support check I destroyed, about my daughter asking why she wasn't enough to be claimed. I wrote until my fingers ached and my eyes burned and the sky outside began to lighten with approaching dawn. The final version was 3 pages long. Direct, honest, devastating. I attached photos. Isla as a newborn, her green eyes already unmistakable. Isla at 3, covered in finger paint and laughing. Isla at her first gymnastics competition, holding a participation ribbon like it was Olympic gold. Isla yesterday, standing on that mat, giving everything she had while her father watched and said nothing. At 2 a.m., before I could second-guess myself, I sent it to the email address I'd saved a decade ago and never deleted. Then I waited. 1 day passed. Then 2. Then 5. Nothing. No response, no acknowledgement, not even a read receipt. I started to think he'd simply deleted it, that my outpouring of pain had meant so little he hadn't even bothered to respond. Isla asked questions I couldn't answer. Does he even know my favorite color, Mama? Does he know my middle name? Does he know I want to be an astronaut when I grow up? I don't know, sweetheart. Do you think he ever thinks about me? I don't know. On the 6th day, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Private meeting? Please. I stared at those words for a full minute before responding. Not at your office. Not on your terms. Hartley's Cafe on 5th Street. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Come alone. His response was immediate. I'll be there. I didn't sleep that night. I rehearsed conversations in my head, imagined scenarios ranging from his genuine remorse to more excuses and justifications. I picked out my clothes carefully, not trying to impress but refusing to look defeated. I called Nadia to watch Isla, telling her only that I had an important meeting. Is it him? Nadia asked quietly. Yes. Do you want me to come with you? No. This is something I need to do alone. Hartley's Cafe was a small, quiet place I'd chosen specifically because it was far from Darian's world of power lunches and networking events. I arrived 15 minutes early, claimed a corner table with my back to the wall, and ordered coffee I didn't drink. Darian walked in at exactly 10 a.m. I barely recognized him. He wore jeans and a plain sweater instead of his usual designer suits. His hair looked like he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He looked, for the first time in the decade I'd known him, genuinely uncertain. He spotted me and approached slowly, like someone approaching a wounded animal that might bolt. Ilara. Thank you for meeting me. Sit down, Darian. He sat, folding his hands on the table, not quite meeting my eyes. The silence stretched between us, heavy with 10 years of unspoken words. I read your letter, he finally said, his voice rough. I've read it probably 50 times in the last 6 days. And you're right. About everything. I was a coward. I am a coward. I chose the easy path, the path that protected my image and my investors and my perfect public life, and I abandoned you both. I don't want your apologies, Darian. My voice came out harder than I'd intended, but I didn't soften it. Apologies are easy. I want to know why. Why you could look at our daughter yesterday and say nothing. Why you could claim Selena as your only child when you know that's a lie. He flinched. Viviana doesn't know about Isla. About you. She thinks Selena is my only child because that's what I've told her for 13 years. So your fiancé is built on a foundation of lies. That's supposed to make this better. No. God, no. Darian finally looked at me directly, and I saw genuine anguish in his eyes. Nothing makes this better. Nothing justifies what I've done. I've spent 10 years telling myself I made the right choice, that walking away was better for everyone, that you and Isla were better off without me complicating things. We were better off without your rejection, I said quietly. But we would have been even better with a father who chose to show up. I know. His voice broke slightly. I know that now. Seeing her yesterday, watching her on that mat, so talented and brave and beautiful, looking exactly like. He stopped, swallowed hard. She has my eyes. She has more than your eyes. She has your stubborn streak, your perfectionism, your weird habit of organizing things by color instead of function. She's half you, Darian, whether you acknowledge it or not. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and showed me a photo. Isla mid-routine, her face focused and determined, completely in her element. I took this yesterday. I've looked at it probably 1,000 times since then. Why? Because I'm trying to memorize her face. Because I'm trying to see all the moments I missed in one frozen second. Because I'm realizing what an absolute fool I've been. I leaned back in my chair, studying him. Looking for manipulation, for performance, for the calculated charm he'd always wielded so skillfully. Instead, I saw exhaustion and regret and something that looked uncomfortably like genuine devastation. What do you want, Darian? Why did you ask to meet? I want to know her. The words came out rushed, desperate. I want to be her father. Actually be present, not just write checks and pretend that's the same thing. I want to fix this. You can't fix this. My voice was flat, final. You can't get back the first 9 years of her life. You can't undo yesterday, can't erase the moment she heard you deny her existence on television. You can't fix this, Darian. You can only decide what you do next. Then tell me what to do next. He leaned forward, his hands spread on the table between us. Please. Tell me how to make this right. I pulled out my phone and found the photo I'd been carrying like a talisman for the last week. Isla's 9th birthday, just her and me and Nadia, blowing out candles on a homemade cake in our tiny apartment kitchen. Her smile was genuine, but there was something wistful in her eyes, something that had been there since she was old enough to notice other kids with their fathers. She writes you letters she'll never send, I said quietly, sliding the phone across the table so he could see. She draws pictures of what she imagines you look like, even though I've never shown her photos. She asks me why she wasn't enough, why you didn't want her, if there's something wrong with her that made you leave. Darian's face crumpled as he stared at the image. There's nothing wrong with her. God, Elara, there's everything wrong with me. She doesn't need your guilt. She needs a father. Actually present, actually interested in who she is, not who you imagine her to be or who you think she should be. Can you be that person? I don't know, he admitted, and the honesty surprised me. I've never been anyone's father in any real sense. I show up for Selena's big events, write checks for her school, pose for photos. But day-to-day parenting? Being actually present? I don't know how to do that. Then you learn. You show up even when it's hard. Even when she's angry at you, even when she pushes you away, even when it would be easier to retreat back into your perfect public life. You be consistent and patient, and you earn her trust one small moment at a time. What if she doesn't want to know me? What if I've hurt her too badly already? That's not your decision to make. I took back my phone, holding that image of my daughter close. That's hers. But I'll tell you this right now, Darian. If you walk into her life, you don't get to walk back out when it gets difficult. You don't get to be a part-time father when it's convenient or good for your image. You're all in, or you're all out. And if you choose all in and then change your mind later, if you hurt her again after I let you close, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. The threat hung between us, real and dangerous. I understand, he said quietly. I want to be all in. I want to know my daughter. Then we do this my way. On my terms. Slowly. Carefully. With her emotional safety as the absolute priority. Anything you need. I pulled out a piece of paper I'd prepared the night before, a list of non-negotiable conditions. Therapy for him to address whatever fear or selfishness had caused his original abandonment. Gradual introduction, supervised visits at first. Complete honesty with Viviana about Isla's existence. No media involvement, no public announcements until we decided together how to handle it. And most importantly, consistency. Regular scheduled time, not just when it was convenient, not just for big events. Darian read through the list carefully, then looked up at me. This is more than fair. This is generous given everything I've done. This isn't about fairness. This is about protecting my daughter from more pain. Can you commit to this? Yes. All of it. Whatever it takes. I didn't trust him yet. Trust would have to be earned in small increments, proven through action rather than promised through words. But I saw something in his eyes that looked like genuine commitment, and I thought about Isla's wistful questions about the father she'd never known. We start small, I said. Coffee shop meeting, neutral territory, me present. 30 minutes. If it goes well, we build from there. When? I need to talk to Isla first. Prepare her. This weekend, maybe. I'll let you know. We exchanged phone numbers, real ones this time, not filtered through lawyers and assistants. As Darian stood to leave, he hesitated. The telescope in your letter. You mentioned she loves astronomy. She wants to be an astronaut. She can name every constellation visible from our latitude. A small smile touched his face, sad and wondering. My mother was an amateur astronomer. She had a telescope set up in our backyard. I'd forgotten about that until just now. Isla would love to hear that story someday. He nodded, started to walk away, then turned back. Ilara. Thank you. For giving me this chance. For being strong enough to raise her alone when I was too weak to stay. For being the parent she deserved when I failed completely. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say that wouldn't feel like forgiveness I wasn't ready to give. That night, I sat Isla down in our living room, my heart hammering with anxiety about how to explain this without raising hopes that might be crushed. Sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something important. She looked up from her homework, green eyes serious. Is it about him? About my father? Yes. How would you feel about meeting him? Just for a little while, with me there. No pressure, no expectations. Just a chance to talk. Isla was quiet for a long moment, her pencil tapping against her notebook in a rhythm that reminded me painfully of Darian. What if he's disappointed? What if he meets me and decides he made the right choice not knowing me? Oh baby. I pulled her close. That's not possible. You are remarkable and anyone who gets to know you is lucky. But if you don't want to meet him, if you're not ready, that's okay too. This is completely your choice. I want to meet him, she said quietly. I want to ask him why. And I want to tell him about the stars. 2 days later, we walked into the same cafe where I'd met with Darian. He was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking as nervous as I'd ever seen him. When he saw Isla, his face transformed with an emotion I couldn't quite name. Hi, Isla said, her voice small but steady. I'm Isla. Hi Isla. Darian's voice was rough with emotion. I'm your father. Though I know I haven't earned that title yet. They sat across from each other, this man and this girl who shared DNA but nothing else, strangers connected by biology and separated by years of absence. I stayed close but tried to fade into the background, letting them navigate this first fragile connection. Why did you leave? Isla asked, direct as always. Mama said you were scared, but I don't understand what was scary about me. Darian's eyes filled with tears. Nothing about you was scary. Everything about me was. I was afraid I wouldn't be a good father. Afraid I would fail. Afraid my company would fail if I was distracted. So I made the worst choice I could possibly make. I chose fear over love, and I chose money over you, and I've regretted it every day since. Do you have other kids? Besides me and Selena? No. Just you two. Does Selena know about me? Not yet. But she will. And I hope someday you two can meet, if you want to. Isla considered this. She's older than me, right? Yes, she's 13. Does she like gymnastics? She loves it. Maybe we could practice together sometime. The simple generosity of that statement, Isla's willingness to envision a future that included her half-sister, made Darian's composure crack completely. Tears spilled down his face. I would like that very much, he managed. If you're willing to give me a chance to know you. I have conditions, Isla said, sounding far older than 9. You have to be consistent. You can't just show up when it's convenient and then disappear. And you have to actually care about what I care about, not just what you think I should care about. I can do that. I will do that. And you have to tell me about your mother's telescope. Mama said she was an astronomer. Darian looked at me in surprise, then back to Isla. She was. She had a beautiful refractor telescope. She taught me all the constellations when I was about your age. Which one was your favorite? Cassiopeia. The queen who was turned into stars. Mine is Orion. The hunter. They talked about stars for the remaining 20 minutes, their conversation growing easier, more natural. I watched my daughter slowly relax, watched her smile emerge, genuine and bright. And I watched Darian truly see her for the first time, not as an abstract concept or a mistake to be managed, but as a real person with thoughts and dreams and interests. When our time was up, Isla surprised me by hugging him. Brief, tentative, but real. Same time next week, she asked. I'll be here, Darian promised. I'll always be here now, if you'll let me. Over the following months, a fragile routine emerged. Weekend coffee shop meetings grew into trips to science museums and planetariums. Darian showed up consistently, even when work was demanding, even when it would have been easier to cancel. He asked questions about her life, remembered details, brought her small gifts that showed he was actually listening. A book about women astronauts. A model of the International Space Station. And eventually, carefully, a telescope. Not an expensive showpiece meant to impress, but a good quality beginner telescope with a note, "This was my mother's. She would have wanted you to have it." Isla cried when she opened it, overwhelmed by the weight of that inheritance, of being trusted with something precious. The media attention never completely died, but we learned to manage it. Brief statement through lawyers. No photos of Isla without permission. Emphasis on privacy for both girls. Viviana's reaction had been volcanic, but after the initial explosion, she'd surprised everyone by being relatively gracious, at least publicly. I suspected expensive couples therapy and a very large diamond bracelet had helped. The meeting between Isla and Selena happened on a Saturday afternoon at a neutral gymnastics facility. Both girls were nervous, uncertain how to navigate this strange situation thrust upon them by adult failures. "So you're my sister," Selena said, not unkindly but not warmly either. "Half-sister," Isla corrected. "We share a father." "Right. Half-sister." Selena twisted her gymnastics bracelet. "This is really weird." "Super weird," Isla agreed. "Did you know about me before?" "No. I thought I was his only daughter. Now I feel like I was just the one he chose to acknowledge." "At least he chose you from the beginning." Isla's voice was matter-of-fact, but I heard the hurt underneath. "I had to force him to notice me." The girls stared at each other, processing their shared damage from different angles. Then Selena did something unexpected. She smiled, genuine and a little sad. "Want to see my beam routine?" I've been working on a new dismount. Only if you want to see my floor routine. I finally nailed a back layout. They moved onto the mats together, communicating through the language they both understood, finding connection through shared passion rather than shared blood. It wasn't instant sisterhood, wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. But it was a beginning. 6 months after that first coffee shop meeting, I stood watching Isla compete in a regional gymnastics championship. In the stands, Darian sat beside me, no longer a stranger but not quite integrated into our lives either. Viviana sat on his other side, Selena between them, creating this strange new configuration of blended family. Isla's routine was flawless. She'd been working toward this moment for months, training harder than ever, driven by something more than just love of the sport. When she stuck her final landing, she looked into the stands, and for the first time, she looked at both of us. Her mother and her father. After the competition, after the medals and congratulations and team photos, we all went out for ice cream. The 5 of us sat at a large table, conversation flowing more easily than it had months ago but still with moments of awkward silence. Isla and Selena were debating the merits of different gymnastics techniques, talking over each other with growing enthusiasm. Viviana was checking her phone but occasionally contributing surprisingly insightful comments. Darian was quiet, watching his daughters interact with an expression that mingled joy and regret. "I missed so much," he said quietly to me during a lull in conversation. "Yes," I agreed. "No point in softening that truth. I can't get those years back." "No. But I'm here now. I'm trying." I looked at him, this man who'd broken my heart and abandoned our daughter, who was now genuinely trying to build something from the wreckage of his choices. "I know you are. And it matters. Not enough to erase the past, but enough to maybe build a different future. Is there ever a chance that we—" He trailed off, the question unfinished but clear. "No," I said gently but firmly. "Whatever we were 10 years ago died when you walked away. But we can be good co-parents. We can be friendly. We can work together to give our daughter the stability she deserves." He nodded, accepting the boundary. "That's more than fair." Isla looked over at us, caught us talking, and smiled. That smile, unguarded and genuinely happy, was worth every difficult conversation, every awkward meeting, every moment of uncertainty. Later that night, after we dropped Isla off and I was driving home alone, my phone buzzed with a text from Nadia. "How did it go?" "Better than I expected." "Complicated, but better." "Are you okay?" I thought about that question carefully. Was I okay? The man who destroyed my heart was now permanently woven into my life through our daughter. My carefully constructed single-parent existence had been disrupted. The future I'd imagined had shifted into something I couldn't quite predict. But Isla was happy. She had a father who was trying, a sister she was beginning to bond with, a larger family than she'd had 6 months ago. "Yeah," I texted back. "I think I am." If this story resonated with you, if you believe in the power of second chances but also the importance of protecting those we love, I need you to do something for me. Please, truly please, hit that subscribe button. It means more than you might think. This channel is trying to grow, trying to reach people who need to hear stories about navigating impossible situations, about finding strength you didn't know you had, about healing even when you thought the damage was permanent. Every subscription helps me continue bringing you these stories. And if you've experienced something similar, if you've had to navigate blended families or protect your child from someone who should have protected them, leave a comment. Share your story. You're not alone. "I have 2 daughters," he said clearly, his hand finding Isla's shoulder as she stood beside him. "Selena and Isla. I'm incredibly proud of both of them, and I'm grateful every day that they're giving me the chance to be their father." Cameras flashed. Questions erupted. But Isla just looked up at him and smiled, the kind of smile that said she was beginning, just beginning, to trust that this time he might actually stay. The path forward wasn't perfect. We still had difficult moments, misunderstandings, hurt feelings that needed navigation. Darian still sometimes prioritized work over consistency. Viviana still occasionally made passive-aggressive comments about the disruption to her perfect life. The girls still competed for attention in ways that required careful management. But we were trying. All of us, in our imperfect ways, were trying to build something functional from the fragments of broken promises and abandoned responsibilities. Because at the end of the day, healing isn't about perfection. It's not about erasing the past or pretending damage didn't happen. It's about choosing, every single day, to show up. To be present. To do better than you did yesterday even when yesterday was terrible. It's about recognizing that worth isn't determined by who claims you, but by who you are when you claim yourself. And sometimes, it's about giving people the chance to become better than they were, while still protecting yourself from who they used to be. Isla learned that she was valuable with or without her father's acknowledgement. Darian learned that presence matters infinitely more than money or image. Selena learned that love doesn't divide when it multiplies, it just grows to fit more people. And I learned that protecting my daughter sometimes meant letting her take risks, even emotional ones, even when every instinct screamed to keep her safe from potential hurt. The final lesson took me the longest to learn. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean the hurt disappears or the consequences vanish. It means choosing not to let the past poison the possibility of a different future. It means saying, "You hurt me, you failed us, and I'm going to hold you accountable for doing better while also allowing you the space to actually do better." That's the complicated truth nobody tells you about second chances. They're not clean or simple. They don't come with guarantees or happy endings tied up in perfect bows. They come with conditions and boundaries and the very real possibility of being hurt again. But sometimes, just sometimes, they also come with the possibility of something better than what you lost. Not the same, never the same, but valuable in its own complicated way. As I watched my daughter laugh with her sister, as I watched the father who'd abandoned her now showing up consistently, as I watched our fractured family slowly learning to function together, I realized that this imperfect, complicated, messy resolution was enough. Not perfect. Not what I'd dreamed of 10 years ago when I'd imagined my future with Darian. But real and honest and built on truth rather than illusion. And sometimes, especially when you've survived the alternative, that's more than enough. If you made it this far, thank you. Thank you for investing in this story, for caring about these people, for understanding that life is complicated and healing is gradual and there are no perfect solutions to imperfect situations. Please subscribe to Mr. Stephen Stories. Please share this with someone who needs to hear it. And please know that whatever impossible situation you're navigating, whatever choice feels too hard to make, you're stronger than you think. You're doing better than you believe. And you're not alone.